Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. And today's video is going to be on legs. I had a request to do some more legs, and they're always a good thing to practice. If you're going to draw comics, you're definitely going to draw some legs. So, yeah, and they're tricky, so it's good to practice them as often as possible. So, I'll kind of explain some of the things that I learned even by doing these 10 poses here. You've always got this reverse arch to the way the legs go. So the upper part of the leg has this outward bend, and then the lower part of the leg bends backward just a little bit, or in the opposite direction. So you'll notice when I draw these, I start with the kind of hip bones, and there's that little back bend, just real slight. One thing to keep in mind is if you want to make the legs look more a bit more feminine, that the arch in the leg, women's legs, are a little bit more defined in the other direction like that. So you'll see that when I draw the female legs, they tend to be more slender and elongated, and that little gesture line bend is more accentuated. So, and you see there I select and try to distort the one leg and the foot, and I do that a lot with my work where I just kind of manipulate it as I go. It's one of the really great things about digital, so I do it. So then I soft erase it down and I start to sketch over top. Now, when I do this portion, I try to think in terms of rope drawing, where I just draw either the perimeter of the legs or whatever it is I'm working on. But I try to think of it in terms of rope drawing, where each line will pass through and kind of direct the next line. Or at least that's the way I think about it. So it really helps with anatomy because you can basically, push the one muscle group to another, and they're all kind of interconnected anyways. So, or they are interconnected. So it's good to draw it in that fashion. So, and it feels a lot more believable and easier to accomplish by drawing it that way. So you'll notice each time I start with those really, like stick figure kind of lines just to get the direction of the shape. Then I go over top with some cylinders. Now, as I start to feel more comfortable with what I do, especially after I warm up, I kind of do less of that later on in the sketch process. But here I try to do it as much as possible because I want to illustrate, how you could come up with your own leg drawings. So I feel, if I show you that very basic kind of how to draw the Marvel way type feel, at least I think that's where I got it all from. Then it basically gives you, that those building blocks to do it on your own. And keep in mind, on some of these, I am looking at reference. I recommend anything that's more complex to you to use some kind of reference. You don't have to, really adhere to it too overly much or whatever, but just for general guidelines. Like, even though I'm looking at reference, I'm very much stylizing it. Obviously I'm not drawing over top of it or anything like that. So I'm very much adding my own style to the work as I go. And some of them I'm just freestyling. I'm just basically going off memory. But one of the really neat things is after you do this long enough, you'll be able to look at reference from one pose and create another without really thinking about it. And then after a while, you just probably won't use the reference at all. But there's certain things that I think make more sense to go back to reference anyways. And anatomy is definitely one of them because it's so easy to distort the anatomy and make it look incorrect. I mean, I keep looking at the legs off to the right and they're just really squatty and overly bubbly or whatever, but and that's okay, I guess, for style if I wanted that look, but that's where using your reference and studying it more will kind of hone those proportions back in for you. So yeah, just trying to do a few different poses, even something as casual as this. A lot of times we'll forget as artists to practice the very basic poses. I mean, you obviously don't want every character just standing upright and straight, but it's those little ones where there's a bit of a gesture, maybe a leaning on one leg or a tilt, an angle to the body and leaning against a wall. All those little things are very great for telling a story with your art. This one I go for a very traditional comic book crouching pose or whatever, where they're kind of ready to leap into action or whatever. And I try to, as I progress through this, I try to do a couple that are more difficult to draw, basically, so they're not all just upright turnaround shots, So yeah, obviously make the front leg larger to add to the perspective of the foreshortening or whatever. And again, go right to the rope drawing, adding a little bit of line weight. There I show how you got a bit of a tilt to the ankle, so it's good to take notice of that. It's also good to take notice that the bottom part of the leg actually shifts from the top part of the leg, that they're not straight up and down from this angle. That the lower part of the leg actually has a bit of a outward bend to it as well. And trying to show some weight on that back foot. Feet can be tricky. As you can see here, I pretty much slaughter most of these feet. But I wanted to make it look like they were in some kind of suit, even though I don't draw a whole lot of the detail to that. I just wanted to, well, basically I didn't feel like drawing toes, if you want to know the truth. But I wanted the focus to be on the legs, not toes, and that's a whole other, I could probably do a video just on toes. So here this isn't a full leg shot, but I felt like it was an important one because, again, those scenes that just require a little bit different kind of shot, maybe somebody walking away in the scene and you do a close-up just for some dramatization of that, So it's good to practice little shots like this as well. And, weird perspectives like this actually will give you a better idea of the forms that are in this, in the legs. There's just so many details to the legs, the feet themselves. It's really important to just draw them in every imaginable scenario. And with the more shots you do like this, the comfort level will go way up, and you'll realize one day you're like, whoa, I understand all these shapes and where they go, and it takes a lot of time. I mean, I'm definitely not there yet, but by studying it over and over again, it'll all start to make sense. And then leg poses that were before, hard will become easy. Like this one, for instance, just a side shot. So they become very easy after drawing so many legs. Profiles will probably be the ones that come most easily to you after a while. They are for me anyways. So here I wanted to do a side shot to really show that opposite bend I was talking about from the top of the leg to the bottom of the leg. And it's it's obviously more accentuated in the female form, and you could really over accentuate it to stylize your character if you wanted. So, and just doing a little bit of the muscle shapes, not getting too much into the overall detailed anatomy. One of the things I recommend if you're trying to make a female pose look a little more feminine is do some muscle, but just not go overly ripped. And that's just my opinion. Obviously, teach their own, and obviously there's some really defined women as far as muscles go. But I'm just saying, as far as giving them a more sensual appeal, it probably makes sense to tone down the muscle a bit. And here I'm trying to do a really weird kind of kick pose, but overly stretched out pose. And I almost didn't finish this one. It's like some of those drawings start off really bad, and I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work out. Some of them just don't. And I made myself kind of work through this one, so you could probably see that I'm struggling a bit with the shape of the leg up in the air. And what it mainly is, I think, is that every time you go to draw something in a weird pose that you're not used to, it forces you to really rethink the shapes. It's also why you'll see the last few I actually do upside down, and it's intentional because if you draw these shapes in a way that you're not used to looking at them, then it really forces you to analyze it a bit further. And in turn can, I think, kind of trigger something that makes you draw a bit better. I mean, not in the process at first, you're going to feel like you're drawing very poorly, but once you get through it, once you, use your determination and you make it through it, I think you're in turn going to feel like you accomplished more, and you're going to study the forms in a little bit deeper method. So I would definitely try it. Just try drawing things like this upside down, just in a fashion you're not used to. And obviously foreshortening, that's another one that is just really tricky because you're just not always used to seeing forms in that overly foreshortened way. So it's very easy to get it wrong. So yeah, this one was kind of an eye-opener to that because I'm like, I can't get the foot right. How does the ankle react here? How does the bone off the front of the foot react? So I was sitting there struggling and moving lines around and erasing. But I think it's good. It shows you, once again, that I don't get this stuff right on the first try, hardly ever, unless it's just a very basic pose. I'm constantly fighting it and struggling with it and laboring over it. So that's just the way it goes sometimes. But you could see all those same initial lines are used no matter the pose. I do that little V for the hip bone, the knees, the little dots, and even this foreshortened shot. Same thing, all those same basic building blocks are used to establish the forms and then work over top. So yeah, and then I use a little bit of distort there. I love digital where I can just grab and move things around. Which if you don't have digital, just keep in mind you can always use a light table. And if you don't have a light table, you can use a window with the sun coming through it. And if you don't have a window, then I'm surprised you have internet and you're watching this at all. So yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. And then also you can check out in the description link below. I've got some more course content for various drawing tutorials. Just did one on how to draw comic book faces from start to finish in Sketchbook Pro. So be sure to check that out if you don't mind. As always, thanks for tuning in. And be sure to like us on Facebook under Ram Studio Comics. And keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.